It's the final countdown, and I'll spare you all the true horror of listening to me sing that. Only a few days left until Halloween, and we've just finished the last full week of the binge. Welcome to the Oktoberfest podcast. As always, I am your host and archivist of the arcane, Jeff, and this is the recap for week 4 of 2024. With only 10 days remaining in the season, I started the week with some plans. I had ideas for a few nights, themes and films, but no particular order. Unfortunately, plans rarely work out, and I ended up having to cut a couple of evenings short due to non-October events. It was looking to be a pretty light week, screening-wise. But thanks to a productive weekend, I ended up with another 20 on the list, making the current total 84. Will we hit 100 before the end of the month? It's possible. Let's get into this week's offerings. The previous recap took a long time to produce, and Sunday's viewing began later than I'd hoped, so I started with a seasonal staple. Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola film from '92. It has great production design and aesthetic, and an amazing cast. Gary Oldman, Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder, Richard E. Grant, Carrie Elwes, Tom Waits, and a horribly miscast Keanu Reeves. An insane list for the early 90s. Coppola's take on the Gothic novel is full of eerie visuals and has some great elements, but tends to dwell overlong in expositional scenes. Most of the cast is really strong, which just makes the failed British accents from Reeves and Ryder that much more distracting. Even so, most of the effects hold up, and the movie is worth a watch just to see Hopkins and Oldman attempt to chew all the scenery. In the novel and the film, Dracula travels from the Carpathian Mountains to England on a ship called the Demeter. The captain's log tells of the crew disappearing on the long journey, but not much detail is given. Enter the last voyage of the Demeter, released in 2023. The movie opens on the wreck of the Demeter coasting to shore in England, and the discovery of the captain's log, then winds back to the departure of the doomed vessel from Varna some weeks earlier. The vampire is well designed and not overexposed, leaving it proper creepy, and the sensation of being trapped on the ship with inevitable death stalking is built up nicely. Some familiar faces in the cast include Liam Cunningham, channeling some of the seafaring skills he showed as Davos in Game of Thrones, and Aisling Franciosi, who I just watched go mad in stop motion, along with David Dastmalchian from another Oktoberfest hit, Late Night with the Devil. I think this may be the best doomed boat movie I've come across. Some proper scares. Pretty dark. Moving on from the old vamp and the sea, I took a dip in one of my least favorite horror genres, found footage. Largely popularized by the Blair Witch Project, there are a lot of these movies out there, because they're less expensive to shoot generally, and it takes less mastery to shoot a bunch of idiots walking around in the woods than it does to build lights and sets and actually have a story, keep things in focus. Anyhow, I opened with a movie I thought I'd seen before, Entity from 2013. I believed this was a movie about some documentarians discovering a secret lab where people had been kept awake until something supernatural occurred. It was not. Instead, it was a movie about some documentarians discovering a secret lab where psychics had been tortured until something supernatural occurred. I don't know if the movie I was thinking of exists, or if I conjured it from broken memories of several other films. If you know what I'm thinking of, please let me know. But back to the thing I watched. It was bad. A group of idiots filming a TV show about exposing secrets find an abandoned Soviet lab while investigating a mass grave found in the 80s, with the help of a psychic. The psychic leads them to the place, the camera shakes a lot, people scream, and even though these are supposed to be professional television crew, nothing is ever in focus. The setting and concept is decent creepy. Abandoned military torture research facility is rife with possibility, but their go-to scare is make everyone nauseous and scream a lot. Pass on this mess. I think my therapist was right. I should be nicer to myself. I knew this next movie was going to be bad. I predicted it would be 80% morons with GoPros wandering through the woods. Even so, I put on She Walks in the Woods from 2019. Turns out I was wrong. Rather than being mostly footage of the cast and filmmakers in the woods, it's mostly footage of the cast and filmmakers going to the woods. I have a bit more sympathy for bad dialogue these days, after having recorded a few of these podcasts. I know that it takes a couple takes to get things right. It wouldn't have killed this group to write some kind of script or retake a couple of shots. Here's the plot in a sentence. 3 guys who run a survival YouTube channel drive for half the movie to meet up with a girl who has a cabin in the woods, then go to the cabin, then get killed by some beantlered lady. You'd think during the 2/3 of the film we're just being shown the cast talking to each other, we'd get some lore about the forest, or some reason to connect with the characters, or some setup for future events. We get none of this. It's just insipid yammering. I'll give them some points for a creepy costume on the monster, but that's all they get. Hopefully they got some promotional funding from their camera manufacturers. They spend a fair bit of time describing the make and model in detail. As is my tradition, I ended the night with a movie I actually like, which I really needed after the two stinkers before. Devil's Pass from 2013 is the cleanly shot documentary of a group of college students investigating the real tragedy that occurred at Dyatlov Pass in 1959, where 9 experienced hikers died in mysterious circumstances. Directed by Die Hard 2's Rennie Harlin, and starring a bunch of folks I don't know from anything else, this is a very watchable entry in the found footage set. The cameras are rarely shaky, the scary things are actually in focus, the story has some fun and interesting twists, and the CG is, well, dog shit. But it comes in late, and doesn't matter much. This one's good, but might require a warm beverage. Russia looks cold. Here's where my plans started to fall apart. I decided to have a This House is Unclean night. I had 4 or 5 movies about poltergeists or demon houses picked out, but I got started too late and only managed to finish 1.5. First up was the original Amityville Horror from 1979. I'd seen this before, and remembered thinking it was alright, but I may have been swayed by its name recognition. This 2-hour snooze fest is clunky and grainy and mostly bereft of scares. It may frighten folks who are strongly religious, they lean a lot on demons and Christianity and whatnot, but the church is utterly useless in defending the family in the house from the evil spirits that lock a babysitter in a closet and steal some money and make Thanos' father look sickly. Some stuff finally happens in the last 10 minutes, but I'd largely checked out already. I guess it's scary if you don't like flies, and find nuns and priests being uncomfortable a terrifying prospect. I moved on to Tobe Hooper's 1982 masterpiece, Poltergeist, which ended up taking 2 sittings to finish because of poor time management on my part. Luckily, either because I know this movie so well, or because it's such a good film, my enjoyment was unaffected by a 20-hour intermission. Written and produced by Steven Spielberg, the story of the Freeling family's nightmare in Cuesta Verde is an absolute horror staple. Even 42 years later, the ghost effects are great, and watching a man peel his face off is uncomfortable. If you haven't seen Poltergeist, watch it. If you have seen Poltergeist, watch it again, and pick up on some of the little nuances, like the implication that the older daughter is pregnant. Overflow from Poltergeist meant I was starting my next series late as well, so my planned 90s slasher trilogy night became a double feature instead. I started from the bottom of the quality pile. 1998's Urban Legend. I'd largely forgotten about this movie, as it seems most people have, but it sported quite the late 90s cast. Alicia Witt as the plucky heroine, where did she go? Rebecca Gayheart as the secret psycho, whatever happened to her? Joshua Jackson as the famous guy to kill off? And a guy I think we all know best as the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars, Jared Leto, as a sketchy reporter. Also, a cameo by Brad Dourif, who is so much better an actor than the rest of this lot, they write him out after 5 minutes so he doesn't make them look bad. The premise here is simple. A killer stalks a college campus using urban legends as their motif, but no one gets fed to an alligator in a sewer. Even though there are tons of fun urban legends to pull from, they seem to run out of steam after 3 and just resort to chasing people with an axe. There's a late 90s, early aughts trend of using Robert Englund cameos as a shortcut to horror cred. This movie shows why that doesn't work. This was a waste of Freddy Krueger's time to be here. Rebecca Gayheart is believably insane at the end, though. I guess that's a plus. If you enjoy Scream knockoffs, either ironically or genuinely, you may like this. I did not. By the time Urban Legend had crawled to its conclusion, I knew I had to cut out the middle selection. The horribly titled I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997. I skipped right to the source. Wes Craven's Scream from 96. The Terror of Woodsboro, and the wild twist at the end, inspired a generation of would-be successors and half-ass knockoffs, many from its own franchise. Scream is still a fun watch. Matthew Lillard really steals the scenes here with his portrayal of Psycho Stu. There's some genuine clever, but my suspension of disbelief fails when a garage door opener lifts a grown woman. Those things can barely lift the door they're attached to, let alone the extra weight. Come on. Thursday night was Comet Chaos, a series of movies where doom is carried in from the depths of space, starting with the title I've been trying to work in all season, 1985's Lifeforce. Another Tobe Hooper effort, this is probably the strangest and darkest shape-shifting space vampires hiding in a cone of Halley's Comet destroy London movie that's ever been made. It opens with astronauts on a mission to explore the comet, finding a mysterious object, which turns out to be a ship filled with long-dead giant bat creatures, and 3 perfectly preserved naked humans in some type of stasis. They load them onto their ship for the return trip to Earth, and we cut to weeks later and find that the ship has failed to return as expected and isn't responding to radio communications. When the ship is explored and found derelict, with only the 3 preserved humans from the comet left intact, they're brought to London and promptly create a plague of energy-sucking zombies. Their leader, who's pretty much always naked for some reason, escapes captivity, and the rest of the movie follows 2 men as they try to track the woman down and discover her plan, always seeming to be a couple of steps behind. Lifeforce takes some strange turns on the vampire and zombie lore, and I really enjoy its weirdness. Bonus points for a cameo from Sir Patrick Stewart. Some decent scares and practical effects work, and existential dread. Next up, a slightly lighter tone on astronomic doom. Maximum Overdrive from 1986 is actually directed by Stephen King. It's his only director's credit. When the Earth passes through the tail of rogue comet Rhea M, machines start coming to life with a thirst for blood. A ragtag group of the most unlikable survivors to ever grace the screen are trapped at a truck stop by rampaging 18-wheelers, and only Emilio Estevez can save them. Maximum Overdrive was not well received in the 80s, and it's a pretty dumb flick, but it's a fun time. Once again, time got the better of me, and I wasn't able to close out with the granddaddy of all cosmic doom movies, Night of the Living Dead. I'll get there someday. While I've been perusing these catalogs of movies for the last month, I found a trifecta I wanted to run. The Gate, The Gates, and Beyond the Gates. These are all completely unrelated movies, but the titles compelled me. The Gate is a 1987 movie starring a 13-year-old Stephen Dorff, many years before he became the blood god in Blade. Lightning strikes a tree in Glenn's backyard, and he and his friend Terry find a geode in the hole left behind, which cracks and leaves mysterious writing on an erasable pad in Glenn's room, somehow. This leads to the boys accidentally opening a gate to ancient demons who once ruled the universe, which take the form of adorable, tiny stop-motion critters. The gate plays out a bit like Evil Dead for kids. It's decent, and the stop-motion's fun. The Gates is a 2003 period piece in late Victorian England. The rise of spiritualism and advancements in technology have Gimli, son of Gloin, and his niece taking portrait shots of dead people, while they try to get their ghost-hunting side hustle off the ground. They're called in to photograph the first criminal executed by electric chair at a prison called The Gates. Richard Brake, who I immediately recognized as Joe Chill from Batman Begins, but has an impressive set of acting credits, plays the deceased murderer, who has some plan to resurrect his wife somehow. A bunch of folks end up holed up in the prison while Sala from Indiana Jones and a spiritualist from the local Adventurers Guild try to exorcise the evil. There's some decent visuals here, and they managed to get the look of Old England, but I never got hooked in this and was mostly bored. It's hard to be bored and scared. This one's an easy pass. Beyond the Gates was the prize of the night. It's also the toughest one to find. I needed to get another streaming subscription, but it was worth it. This 2016 movie opens with a pair of brothers meeting at their missing father's video store. Note for the youth. Video stores are where we used to rent VHS tapes and DVDs, which is how we watched movies before the internet piped them directly into our brains. They discover a mysterious cassette in his office at the store, which is connected to a VHS game called Beyond the Gates. Note for the youth. VHS games were board games you played guided by a tape. They never really took off. The movie plays out a bit like evil Jumanji, but with the focus on familial redemption rather than getting the respect of the father. It has some solid creepy moments and visceral deaths. Extra credit for spooky Barbara Crampton as the host of the VHS game. Really enjoyed this one. Finally, I had completed a set. Now I have some extra time to toss on a film at random. The Last Winter from 2006. This is the kind of movie I love to find during October. It wasn't a good movie. It wasn't particularly entertaining or scary, but it's a hub movie. It turns out The Last Winter was written, directed, and edited by Larry Fessenden. Fessenden has featured in many previous October movies, including We Are Still Here and Brooklyn 45 from this year. It also stars Ron Perlman, always great, Connie Britton, and Zach Gilford. In 2006, Britton and Gilford were working on another little project together, Friday Night Lights. Finding these unexpected connections between movies and actors is one of the reasons I subject myself to torrents of sludge masquerading as movies. I'm looking at you, Frightmare. As for the plot, a team getting a site ready for oil drilling in Alaska is unable to get started because the temperatures are too high. Global warming has set in, and it's just too warm to trust heavy machines on the ice. Oh no. Then everyone at the site starts to lose their minds, wandering off naked in the snow, or hallucinating, or all around acting odd. Eventually, just about everyone is dead. There are CGI ghost moose running around, and Connie Britton does a Resident Evil finale walk into a thawed-out Alaskan street, indicating that ghost moose and global warming are going to end the world. Fessenden is more than a little heavy-handed in his messaging here. Maybe if he'd hired a director, or a writer, or an editor, they'd have told him his film was about 30 minutes too long. Still a good find. Staying on the theme of global warming and icy environments, I launched into Harbinger Down from 2015. A couple of grad students and their horrible professor book passage on a crabbing ship captained by Lance Henriksen to track down a pod of whales that are behaving erratically. They assume this is because of global warming, but it turns out to be in response to a crashed Soviet space probe with a human corpse inside. Inside that corpse is an experimental mutant tardigrade, which goes all the thing on the crew of the ship. While some of the creature stuff is cool, the overall level of acting in this clunker makes it very difficult to give a shit. Still, tardigrades, hardy little bastards. Final theme of the week I called Metamovies. Films that poke at the genre tropes and cliches and twist them a bit. Beginning with one of my favorites, 2012's Cabin in the Woods. 5 college students go on a weekend trip to a cabin in the woods and encounter evil from the basement. But things aren't exactly what they seem. The characters are all shown to be more than their traditional archetypes, and there's a solid mix of humor with the well-executed horror. I don't want to give too much away here, because the first watch is more fun without the reveal. But there's so many little details in the movie that it's worth going back to again and again. Brian Kranz, who stars as the stoner Marty in Cabin in the Woods, is back, and back in the woods, in You Might Be the Killer from 2018. After discovering some of his counselors brutally murdered, camp runner Sam, Kranz, frantically calls his friend Chuck, played by Allison Hannigan, to help him figure out what to do. As they talk, Sam's memory starts to return, and he discovers he might be the killer. Again, we have a movie that knows the tropes and breaks the rules even while explaining them. With a good mix of comedy in the splatterfest, I find it to be a solid companion to Cabin in the Woods. Staying in the woods, hell, that could have been the theme here. I moved on to The Final Girls from 2015. While attending a screening of her late mother's 80s slasher classic, Max and her friends are pulled into the movie and need to find a way to escape, if they can survive. Malin Ackerman and Thaisa Farmiga star as mother and daughter, with Alia Shawkat, maybe from Arrested Development, as the best friend, and Thomas Middleditch as her slasher fan stepbrother. Adam Devine shows up as the camp stud in the retro flick, if that moves your needle. They play with the 80s camp slasher genre a lot here, and use the mechanics of movie to have some fun, like pulling the killer into a flashback to escape, or luring him into a trap with a striptease. Despite the generally light tone and requisite slasher slaughter, there's an underlying theme here of accepting loss that I think elevates and gives it some heart. Another recommend if you like slashers, or mocking slashers. Closing out the week was the only movie that could wrap up this set of themes. Woods, shaken tropes, over-the-top kills, legitimate humor, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil from 2010. Evil college kids terrorize a couple of innocent rednecks who are just trying to fix up their new vacation home. Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine are fantastic in this reverse slasher, and Katrina Bowden makes it clear that Hunter's Moon wasn't her fault. Like Cabin in the Woods, this one is an essential for horror fans, but is accessible to pretty much anyone who can stomach a kid hucking himself into a wood chipper. It's a great way to end a night. And that's the list so far. Just a few more nights to binge, and so many movies to choose from, and so many landmines to dodge. Quick lists for the week. The classics. Poltergeist, 82, not the horrible remake. Scream, 96, not the horrible sequels. Lifeforce, Beyond the Gates, and everything I watched last night. Cabin in the Woods, You Might Be the Killer, The Final Girls, Tucker and Dale. Wish me luck on the last leg. Thanks for listening. Keep it spooky.